having a hard time hearing you.
All right. Oh, that's fast, Scott. Wonderful. John, MC, please do introduce our next guest, and I'll be coming out of the stage. Please do introduce our next guest, and I'll be coming out of the stage.
Fantastic. Lan, thank you very much. Just wanted to say, really enjoyed that GCTC conversation. It just explained the sort of challenges that we've got within that group and how it's putting things together. Picking up on your point, Lan, that so much has been done without any budgets and what is achieved. That's absolutely fantastic. And I really love Sokhu's aspiration. We need to keep it moving. We need to get it going. And that's absolutely fantastic. So look, all that is great, but we now need to move on to some tech visionary remarks. And we've got Scott. Scott has joined us here. So Scott, handing it over to you and look forward to your comments.
Great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I really enjoyed, I hope you're enjoying the view of my sink and all the rest of it as I'm in Las Vegas here in lockdown in a 2-bedroom apartment, but loving life and living the dream and have no complaints whatsoever. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to this group, and I enjoyed the panel, and I thought they touched on a lot of key issues. And I don't want to go to the same place as they did, but maybe start at a little higher and more philosophical level that I think we all need to understand and deal with. And that is, we're a country divided right now. There's huge differences in philosophies in a whole bunch of areas. And I think we've got to talk about them and make sure that as we address these challenges of resilience and automation and improving the lives of all of our citizens, we got to understand, some people think everyone has a right to everything. Other people think rights are something you can give everyone without taking from anyone. There's a huge issue and discussion is seldom had about what are the roles and responsibilities of the private sector versus the roles and responsibilities and charters of the public sector. And how do we talk about that? We don't often talk about what is personal responsibility versus government responsibility at the individual level. And what does inclusion mean? Are we talking about equal opportunity, equal outcomes? There's a huge set of issues. Does it take a village to raise a child, or is it the two biological parents who are to raise the child and be responsible for them? Is government a good answer for everything or not? Government is a monopoly. I studied economics, and I actually read the Sherman Antitrust Act and wrote a thesis on antitrust. And I understand that monopolies are three things. They are expensive, they tend to price high, they lack innovation, and they tend to be more corrupt. So by definition, government agencies are monopolies because they're around public goods. And so we have to deal with that. What is the role of a government sector union? What is the role of what truly is a public good? And as we deal with, and therefore, there are natural monopolies. Are we moving beyond natural monopolies in the scope and realm of what is being done in the government sector? Those conversations philosophically are very divided. They're very controversial, and people tend to go super emotional on these conversations and not talk rationally about them. But we got to have those conversations, because you can't have a resilient infrastructure. You can't have an innovative infrastructure. You can't have the best answer, because it's going to be a compromise in all cases. You can't have without having that high level conversation. So I encourage everyone, as you go through this conversation, start at the top and really make sure you're both coming from the same place and agreeing on roles, responsibilities. Let's just talk about the pandemic. When it hit, there was very little discussion at the highest levels of who was responsible for what. What was the administration responsible for? What are the governors responsible for? What are the counties responsible for? And what are the local city governments? And in fact, what are the citizens responsible for? How much are they responsible for? Are we all like blameless for anything bad that happens to us, for any comorbidities that we may have, were those accidental or were those life choices? Those are so many conversations that just haven't been had as we went through what I called a pandemic, an infodemic, a panicdemic, a responsibilities demic, as we didn't lay all of those out. So one of the things that I think as we go forward, there's many different kinds of issues that we're going to need to deal with, whether it's floods or cyber attacks or whatever. The most important thing is for everybody to understand who has what roles, responsibilities, and charters as we go through all of this. And I would love to see the individual have more roles and responsibilities and charters, and not let's just have the government solve it, because government monopolies are inefficient, expensive, and not necessarily equitable, even though that often is the phrase they use. So let's just talk about the pandemic. The statistics, we have an infodemic that is off the charts, and it just seems with all of the technology that we have today, to have such a massive infodemic is crazy. We have in the United States 4.1% of the population, yet we have 22% of the COVID deaths. Now, I don't for a second believe that. I don't believe with our healthcare system and all the rest of it that China has 3 per million deaths, and we have 22 point something percent of all of the worldwide COVID deaths. There's the reporting on this thing globally, but especially nationally. I just don't believe the data. And so, and until we can, and I think that ought to be a government responsibility, but shouldn't necessarily be implemented by government agencies, because governments by definition are political. Why don't we just hire some private sector organizations to check and balance each other, and have the CDC get numbers that are verified in the private sector? Because I just, honestly, the public sector is it's got an opinion, and it's been elected, and they're run by political parties. So you can disagree or agree with that, but I think those are the kinds of conversations we need to have. And they aren't necessarily technology conversations. They're really, how do you operate? How do you charter? And as a CEO, I learned, unless you understood everybody's roles and responsibilities, you have a hard time placing responsibility and or blame, if that's what you want to get into in this thing. I do think for smart cities and cyber, all the rest of it, there's so many things that can be done. Somebody in the previous panel mentioned communications. A long time ago, I said the network is the computer. And I totally believe that. Without a great infrastructure, I know AT&T is rolling out a first responder network. I think cities ought to demand cell towers get put up in a highly redundant way and a good low cost way. That is those are like the highways. It's the information highway needs to be funded. So I really think that is the killer role of government, is making sure that there are information highways and physical highways to move goods and services and data around, because those are the currencies that we need to stay alive. I think that privacy is, somebody once said, that was me, you have no privacy, get over it. But I'm okay with businesses having my data, because I can always switch businesses. I don't do Facebook, I don't care. But I can't switch from the DMV, I can't switch from the IRS or the franchise tax board. Actually, I did, because I moved to Nevada. But you can't escape the government. So privacy is something that I'm most scared of when my government has my data. And I know that's not necessarily what the government people want to hear, but I'm very scared about that. And then finally, one last point. I think I'm going to get the hook here from John, because he wanted me done by 9 o'clock. I would like to say that the government agencies shouldn't necessarily be in charge of training our children, but they should be in charge of training our citizens on how to operate in X-demic, any kind of disaster-demic. And one of the things I'm working on, and I encourage you all to go to, is Curriki, curriki.org, www.curriki.org. What we created in free open source manner, and you can come use it for free. Any organization, private sector, government.org. It is a authoring tool to create really great training tools for people in very, very quick manner. It's what PowerPoint creates presentations. Curriki Studio, which we offer for free, allows you to create very great interactive remote learning experiences. Schools need this, government agencies need this, everybody, all corporations need this, because technology has the shelf life of a banana, and the political and pandemic and academic world has the shelf life of a banana. We're going to have another new deal that's different than the pandemic, and we're all going to have to respond to it. And training and education is key to that. Curriki will help grease that skid. So anyhow, that's a quick overview and some other things to think about as you go forward. John, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like me to add.
Scott, I really appreciate that. Incredibly tight and time moments, so really value those thoughts and suggestions and comments you made. And I've certainly made some notes here, which I may come back to you post this conversation and just follow on separately. But thank you for that, Scott. Really, really welcome that. I think